Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about Kubla Cubed. It is a powerful piece of software that I found for doing takeoffs, especially if you've got any sort of print on a job that you're getting yourself into. You can do takeoffs, you can do volume calculations, you can do all sorts of stuff with this software. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, for the price point, you cannot beat it, and it is very simple, relatively speaking, to all of the other takeoff software options out there. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's called Kubla Cubed, and you can click the link below to grab it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's Down and Dirty. We're going to continue our GPS series. And I do want to clarify, in this GPS series, I'm not coming at this from a project manager standpoint at a big company where we're going to have engineered drawings. We're coming at this from the standpoint of a small contractor like Rick and myself who was able to get into GPS. How do you use it? What are we going to use it for? How can we utilize this technology to help us on our small job sites where we're not going to go pay a bunch of money to have engineered prints drawn up? So that being said, today we're going to talk about how to start a project and then just inputting some basic points. So what we've got here is we have our Rover set up, and this is the septic field at my house. We're going to pretend this is a job site. We'll map the corners of our building here. We may put in a little fake driveway. Let's just see how ambitious we get. Down there by my truck is my base station. You can kind of see it sitting right there. All of the setup is kind of arbitrary on this one because it's more about the concepts of what we're going to do on the tablet. So I'm not going to really be on screen for much of this one because we're going to do a screen capture of our tablet, but I'll kind of show you guys what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in here and tap this hamburger menu in the very top right hand corner, and I'm going to hold it down. And this is where we look at all of our projects. And you can see we've got multiple projects stored here. For this particular one, we're on Bishop Lake 2. You can go into the actual settings for this project. We'll get into assign codes and all of that stuff on a future video. But today what we want to do is we're going to tap New Project. And we're just going to call this Play. Because why not? This is going to be a cloud project type, and basically what that means is it's going to instantly upload everything that we do on the tablet to the cloud, so that if we have other machines on this job, they will see the points and the surfaces that we create. Our project units are square feet, or I'm sorry, standard feet. So coordinate system, geoid, we don't need to worry about that. That's all been set up in the tablet, so it automatically in the software is going to use the same stuff that we've set up as defaults. That's a whole other conversation in itself, which we won't get into today. So we're going to go create, and now we have our project called Play. You can see that it's selected, so we're going to hit Done. And now it's going to create that project for us. And look at that, there's nothing. It's a blank screen with us in the middle of it. That little white crosshair is us. That's representative of our Rover. So the question now is, for someone unfamiliar with this, what do we do with this now, Brian? Like, this is cool, but what do we do with it? Well, let's just say that we needed to map out our building corners here so that we could later take them and reference them in Google Earth, or we might need to do something with a building pad. So what we can do is down here in the bottom right hand corner is our point creation tool, and I'm just going to tap it, and you can see, look at that, it created a point called Building Corner 1. What if I didn't want to do that? Well, I can tap and hold this little lock, and I can undo that point. Easy enough. We now have the ability to create points and uncreate points. But what if I don't want that point to be called Building Corner? What if I want it to be called something else? If I click and hold my point selection here, it's going to take us into all of our point codes. And I have already gone through and set up a whole bunch of point codes that are specific to the sort of work that we do. And that's why you see all of these. If you're just getting your tablet from Unicontrol, it's not going to have all of these. But that's no problem because we can add one really quick. So let's go down here to add. And we're going to call this one Play Point. Because that's easy enough. There we go. Done. Done. We have now created, if we go down our list, we have created a point type called Play Point. Now, if I click it, it is now selected, and that is the type of point that we are going to put down. But as you can see, it's automatically designated this point code color as red. Let's say I want to change that. So I'm going to tap the color, and let's say we just want that to be orange because I'm feeling pretty frisky today. There we go. If I hit done, you're going to see now low tilt accuracy basically means this rover has the ability to measure tilt. And if it's still for too long, it just it doesn't know where it's at for a second. So you just got to kind of rotate your pole around and that'll go away. So now you can see in the bottom right hand corner, our point designation is play point now instead of building corner. So now if I tap this, we just logged play point 1. Boom, easy enough, right? It's really straightforward how to do this stuff. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna erase that play point because we've kind of shown that. And now I wanna walk over here and I want to map the 4 corners of our little shed here. So I'm gonna go back into our screen, into our point menu, and I'm going to, by the way, just for the sake of showing you, we can also remove these codes too. So play point, I'm never gonna use that again. So while it's selected, I'm gonna hit remove. It's gonna turn red, and this is basically a confirmation. Are you sure you wanna delete that? Yes, I do. Boom. We have deleted play point out of our point code menu here. Easy as that. So let's go to building corner because we're going to do building corners. Done. And you can see now in the bottom right hand corner, we have building point or building corner designated. So we're gonna walk over here now and we're gonna go set this, and I'm not gonna be super accurate for the sake of this video. It's more about the concept. So I'm gonna set this down by the corner of the building and we're in position. So I'm gonna just tap and drop a point there. That's it. Now we're gonna go to this other corner over here. There we go. It's fun doing this one-handed while holding the camera too. And you can see I'm not getting hyper accurate here, but we are pretty well, on the corner of our building. We're gonna go back up. We're gonna tap our point code. Now let's hit our back 2 corners. You guys get to see all the junk behind my shed. It's a mess. We don't talk about it. Boom, there we go. Now we're gonna walk around, and I'm gonna take you around the front because, yeah, it's a disaster back there, guys. It's where my wife stores all the stuff we don't wanna look at. Future greenhouse windows, in case you're wondering, yeah. Okay, here's our back corner. We're gonna tap it, boom. Look at there. Let's get back out here into the middle of our field because I can show you a couple of things. Okay, so we are now a distance away from our shed, standing back in the middle of the field. And there's a reason I wanted to do that. So if we look at our screen again and I zoom in, it's just like a cell phone. You can pinch to zoom. With 2 fingers, we can move the picture around. But we're gonna go in here and you can see, sure enough, we have 4 building corners there. And you can see that our rover, represented by the crosshair there, is not anywhere close to those corners, which makes sense because we're standing way over here. So what can we do now? Well, there's all sorts of stuff that we can do. First of all, if you notice the white line, this white line right here, going between the building corner 2 and our rover, when the rover is not locked to a point, it will automatically reference whatever point is closest to the rover at that time. And we'll demonstrate this. So we're gonna take our rover over and we're gonna walk a little bit so that we're closer to the back corner. And you're gonna see it jump when we get a certain distance away. So right in here, we should see the jump. There it is, it just jumped. And so you can see it's just automatically gonna reference whatever point we're closest to. And that's just the default setting for the rover. Now, what is that line saying? Well, that line is telling us that all of this stuff at the top of the screen here is referencing building corner 2. So up here in the top right-hand corner, you see building corner 2, the distance to that point in a straight line. We are 33.95 feet away, and we are 1.5 feet below. So that point is above us. That's why there's an up arrow, and it's got a negative because we are 1.5 feet below that point at the building corner 2. Now you have a bullseye in the middle, which is really for locating points and doing stakeouts. And then height design, we're not even going to get into. But the big thing is that white line is referencing a point, and we are getting information about the point that is being referenced. Now, what happens if we want to reference, let's say, building corner 4, but I don't want to walk over there and get it to default to that one. I just want to reference it. Well, if I click and hold my screen here, it's going to bring up a list of points that are close to where I just tapped. And if you look in the background there, building corner 4 is the one I want to reference. If I select it, click done, you're going to notice two things. One, the white line is now referencing building corner 4. More importantly, over here on the right, our little lock went to a locked position. That means we're now locked onto building corner 4. So I can walk anywhere around out here, and it's going to always give me information about building corner 4. And that's the power of that lock. It lets me pick a point that I want to reference information off of, so I can walk around the site and I can continuously reference that point. That's as far and as complicated as we're going to get with that whole setup. We'll get into more complicated things in the future, but that's a quick breakdown of how that works. If I tap the lock, it's going to unlock us and we will go back to the default mode, which we're going to do right now. Tap and boom, look at there. It just defaulted back to building corner 2 because that's what's close. Now we can do a whole lot of things with these points that we'll get into in future videos, such as creating surfaces and creating designs and all sorts of things. We're not going to get into that today. Today is just about creating points and understanding how the rover interacts with those points. So we've now created regular points. Now what if we were doing like a driveway center line? Well, now instead of just having individual points, we want to kind of link those points so that when we go and create any sort of a surface or something along those lines, those points are all linked together, and it's not going to take me a bunch of time individually selecting points. So there's another mode for point creation here. So we're going to go to this button right above our point drop. That's a single point. We're going to tap that. And now all of a sudden you have this whole row of options. The top two options you can kind of decipher. It's essentially you can create a circle based off of 2 or 3 reference points, depending on how you want to do the circle. We're not going to mess with those today. Parallel lines is a whole other complicated set of features that we are not going to get into today. But what we are going to get into is this little Z looking squiggly line, that guy right there. What that tells us is the points that we drop now are going to be linked together, and that's what we want. But there's one other thing I want to do before we drop those points. I want to change our designation because we're going to pretend that we're shooting the center line of a driveway. So I'm going to tap and hold my point drop here, and we're going to go down here to driveway. And because I'm feeling fancy, we're going to change the color to blue. You know what? We're going full fuchsia, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. Getting excitable out here. So now we're going to walk ourselves back here to, let's just say our driveway is going to start right here, because that seems like a really good spot for a driveway. Okay. So we've got our rover down on the ground. We're going to tap our driveway pin. Boom. We have dropped a driveway pin. Now, if you think about it, the way this technology works is we're going to take these lines, these points, and we're going to design a surface based off of those. And if you think about it, the more points we shoot, the more accurate information the information is that it captures. In other words, if I shoot 1 point here and 1 point all the way at the end of the driveway, the system's just going to link those with a straight line. Well, you can imagine over the course of a 500-foot long driveway, there's a lot of undulations and changes in elevation. All of that gets ignored if you only shoot 2 points. So we want to shoot more points. How do you decide how many points you want to shoot? There's a couple different methods we can use, which we will get into in a little more detail down the road. But essentially, if we're going to manually shoot them, then it's just a judgment call. If I walk 15 or 20 feet across the ground and it's pretty stinking flat, I don't need to take a shot every 5 feet. I don't need to take a shot every 2 feet. I can get away with doing 50 feet if it's pretty flat and the slope is staying consistent. But as you can see, kind of over the edge of my hill here, there's more of a gentle slope and a curve to it. That slope is changing. So what I might do is I might come across, if we were going to shoot a driveway going across this way, I might shoot 1, 2, 3 points on this area here because it's all pretty flat and it's all doing the same thing. And then I might shoot a point here, 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 so that we're capturing the curvature of that slope, you know, and then we're going to point to capture the slope back up to the flat part of my driveway down there. And then I might turn and I might do shots every 20 or 30 feet because, as you can see, that portion of the driveway down here is pretty flat. So that's what you got to kind of think about if you're manually shooting points, is you need to capture accurately what's going on with the grades and elevations if you want to be able to make an accurate surface. Because the less points you have, the less accurate the surface is. Hopefully that'll make sense. So going back here, you know, looking straight ahead of us, this is pretty flat, but for the sake of our little demonstration, we'll march up here like 10 feet or so. I don't know, maybe that's closer to 15. I'm good at measuring. Oh, you know what? We're exactly 17.05 feet because we have this really handy dandy tool, and we're gonna drop another point. Boom. And now look at the difference. These points down here for our building corners are not connected. As you can see, our driveway points are connected. So we're gonna march back out here. Now we're, well, look at that. We landed around 17 feet again. Pretty good, huh? And just for the sake of demonstration, we're gonna drop another point here. I'm gonna start to curve this because it doesn't have to just be straight lines, guys. We can go all over the place. And again, when you're doing curves, the more points you drop along the way, the more accurate the surface is going to be when we create it. So as you can see, that's a little subtle curve that we're doing there. That first one, because I did such a steep angle and change in my direction, you can see that's a little more of a rough angle compared to what I'm doing now. So now, as you can see, we're starting to get over this hill where our slope's changing. So now I'm only gonna go 5 feet and I'm gonna take a shot. Then we'll go another 5 feet and take a shot, because it's important that we capture what the pitch is doing. Okay, so we have now shot, if I zoom out here, you can see we have shot a bunch of driveway points there. And so now we're gonna say we're done. So I'm just gonna click this little line with the check mark. Hey, we're done, good. Now we have our building corners staked out and we have our little fake driveway. Now if I touch with 3 fingers, we're gonna start looking in 3 dimensions here. And as you can see, we have not only the top down, you know, obviously there's the top down view, which is straight. We're also getting that curvature of that slope that we just mapped. And by the way, a cool feature of this particular one, if I hit the back button on my little Android tablet here, it resets my view back to the flat 2D view with me centered on it. So it's a really nice kind of, if you get lost, or sometimes when you're playing in 3D, you have no idea where you're at, just hit that back button, boom, and you're right back to it. So this is some of the just kind of fundamentals of adding points within Unicontrol system. It's really easy, it's really straightforward. And the power really comes from what we can do with these points through surface creation. If you're doing barn pads, if you're doing a driveway, I can go take that driveway we just shot, and within about 2 minutes, if that, maybe even a minute, I can go through and I can create a surface where it has a 2% pitch off of each side, and it will follow the line of that driveway that I just shot. And then I'm done. I can go jump in my machine with machine control on it, and I can go grade that driveway out. That's the power of what this is offering. For that building pad we just shot, let's say instead of there being an actual building there, we were shooting the corners of that building pad. I can now take those points, I can go in and I can create a flat surface at whatever elevation I want, and I'm done. Now I can use my blade and I can go in there and I can make a perfectly level pad right where it needs to be. And I know exactly where those corners are at. Now for small guys, you may go, oh, that's Brian, that's neat and fancy and all, but that's not enough to really justify this technology for me. Well, let me tell you another way that this comes into play, and it's a powerful tool for longevity. Rick and I are in the septic business. And so we're going to go back to jobs that we did 15 years ago. And a lot of times, if you're familiar with the septic business, a lot of times homeowners don't want to necessarily pay for risers on their septic tank. And that septic tank lid is buried. Well, now that I have GPS and these files take up such little space and they're all stored in the cloud, I can go to that project. And every time we do a project, I shoot all 4 corners of my field under construction so that I know exactly not only where they're at in the horizontal area, but also how deep they are vertically. I shoot all 4 corners. I shoot my header where the main line comes into the header of the field. If we have any clean outs, so on my particular septic field, as you can see, this is a pressurized field, and so I got these little clean out boxes that you can already see a couple of them are getting a little overgrown, and yeah, you could see how 15 years from now these might be really hard to find. Well, not anymore, because now I can go throw GPS markers down on all of these and I can store that information indefinitely, and it doesn't cost me anything. It's literally just sitting on a server somewhere, or I can store them locally on my computer. And then if I go back to that lot in 15 years, I just throw that file back on my Rover. I go out there and set up my base station, and now I can go find exactly where that septic tank lid is, exactly where the header is if something failed in the field. I can find exactly where those cleanouts are if we ever have to reference those. So you can start to see how just even for a little septic company, having this sort of information is a really powerful tool outside of the actual surface design and stuff that you're going to do that we traditionally think of when we think of GPS. So that's as complicated as I want to get for today. Again, all I wanted to do is create a project with you guys today and lay down some points. And I should clarify, I didn't do this in the beginning. When we created that project, a project really, this is one of the terms that really cross-references what we do in our field. It is a project. So if I'm here at my house, this is going to be the furnace project. If I'm over at Rick's, it'll be Rick's project. Or you know, the nomenclature we typically use in our business is we'll use the customer's address. That way we can always reference something consistent to go back through our archives and find that project file. But a project represents the job that you are on. And so that's what a project is. So we created a project file for my house here, and we added some points to it. So I know this is probably a lot to take in if you're not familiar with GPS at all. Feel free to reach out in the comments and ask some questions, and we will slowly work through the complexities of this and break it down so that you can kind of understand GPS isn't as scary as it initially comes off as, and it's a very powerful tool to have in your inventory. So that being said, we'll catch you on the next one.